Following the celebration of Pentecost several weeks ago, we returned to the liturgical season of Ordinary Time. This was a bit obscured by the celebrations of the Solemnity of the Most Holy Trinity and Corpus Christi, the 2 Sundays immediately following Pentecost. And perhaps the Church places these great solemnities at the recommencement of Ordinary Time in order to ease us out of the great celebratory season of Easter and into a more regular rhythm of life. However, it should in no way be thought that the liturgical season, which spans the time between Christmas and Lent, and then again between Easter and Advent, is somehow mundane in nature as compared to those more, in a manner of speaking, intense liturgical seasons in the life of the Church. We can liken the difference between the season of Easter, which has recently ended, and the ordinary season we now celebrate as the changing seasons within one enduring relationship. In any relationship, there will be moments of peak intensity, where one's love for the other is especially ardent or put to the test. For example, moments of disagreement, sadness, and illness that can challenge the authenticity of love. In contrast, there are those other times where one's love reaches such levels that loving the other seems a matter of nature, coming to us as easily as the breath we draw into our nostrils. We might liken these periods of a more intense nature with those seasons of Lent and Easter, respectively. Still, there will be other spans of time where the relationship passes through more placid periods, where love is more easily maintained and cultivated, and these periods we may liken to the liturgical season of Ordinary Time. We may take the analogy one step further in order to emphasize the importance of this not-so-ordinary time. Any married couple will readily call to mind and agree with what has been said above regarding the varying levels of intensity in their relationship. Moreover, married couples will also tell you that it is those more placid and calm periods of the relationship which can, if one is not careful, lead to the most dysfunction. In fact, some couples will enter these calmer seasons and pass through only to find at the end that they have no idea who the person they are waking up next to is anymore. This in turn quite often leads to a breakdown in the relationship. The two have separately found other interests and, given the social climate, they choose to go their separate ways. The same can be said of our relationship with God. We may not pursue our relationship with the same intensity during ordinary time by incorporating special devotions or periods of fasting as the Church calls us to during Lent, for example. However, our relationship must continue to grow, for if it does not, it will begin to fade and eventually die. As a momentary aside, this is why making special devotions and incorporating regular fasting or abstaining from meat on certain days throughout the year, like Fridays, is important. These are things that the Church did with much greater frequency as a whole in the past, and unfortunately have fallen out of practice. However, this does not mean that individuals and families cannot implement such practices as they discern appropriate within their particular domestic church. If we continue with the analogy, the devotions and ascetic practices we incorporate throughout the year could be likened to date night. The point is, like any relationship, our relationship with God takes maintenance and work. The best news in all of this is that unlike human creatures, whose love tends to be very tied to emotional fluctuation, God's love for us never changes. What's more, while we might move away from Him, or have our love for Him distracted, His focus is continually on us, as our readings for today demonstrate.
If you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button and check us out at FRESHImage.org, where you'll find commentaries and articles on countless topics important for becoming the unique image of God you have been created to be. And be sure to check out FRESHImageMedia.com, our sister company, to discover Christian home goods and gifts deeply rooted in Scripture that you won't find anywhere else.